The school bus had been gone for 17 minutes when I stopped telling myself it was late. I had been standing at the front window with my phone in one hand and a roll of packing tape in the other, watching an empty stretch of pavement where Lucy should have appeared. Behind me, half the dining room was already in boxes. Books, kitchen things, winter clothes we would not need again before the move. My permanent change of station orders were taped to the side of one carton, because I had learned, after 19 years in the Air Force, that important paper disappeared the moment you needed it unless you gave it a place. I was a master sergeant in security forces. My job was physical security. Access points, procedures, failure points, the boring things people ignored until something went wrong. None of that meant anything while I watched an empty sidewalk waiting for my 10-year-old daughter. Margaret Cole was sitting at my dining room table, sorting through a canvas tote filled with Lucy's things. A sweatshirt, 2 library books, a robotics charger. One sneaker Lucy had somehow managed to leave at her grandmother's house without noticing. Margaret was my former mother-in-law. She had come over because our custody hearing was Thursday and, as she put it, there was no reason to make an already difficult week more difficult. We had never been close. Since the divorce, close had become impossible. But she had brought Lucy's things. She had helped label 2 moving boxes. She had made coffee. Nothing about her presence felt unusual enough to remember. At 3:11 I called the school. The secretary put me on hold. 30 seconds later her voice changed. "Mrs. Cole, Lucy didn't take the bus." "I know, how did she leave?" Another pause. "She was picked up." Something inside me went cold. "By who?" "I'm pulling the record." Margaret stood before I said another word. She did not ask what was wrong. She could see it on my face. The secretary came back. A one-time pickup authorization was entered through the parent portal. "By whom?" "I can see the account. I can't tell you who physically entered it from this screen." "Who signed Lucy out?" "Troy Benson." I waited for the name to mean something. It didn't. "I don't know a Troy Benson." Margaret was already reaching for her phone. "Call the police." I looked at her. "Now, Erin." She did not whisper. She did not tell me to calm down. She did not say this was because I was moving. She did not mention the custody hearing. She called Mason while I dialed 911. For a long time afterward, that mattered to me. It made what came later harder to believe. The dispatcher asked for Lucy's age: 10, height 4'7", weight about 70 pounds, clothing yellow shirt, blue jeans, gray sneakers with purple laces. I knew every answer until she asked whether Lucy had any reason to run away. No, then I heard how absolute I sounded. I corrected myself. "Not that I know of." The dispatcher asked about custody conflict. "Yes." "Any threats?" "No." "Any recent arguments involving the child?" I looked at the moving boxes. "She doesn't want to leave her school." "Does she want to live with her father?" "Sometimes she says she wishes both houses were closer together." That was not the same answer. I knew it. So did the dispatcher. The doorbell rang while I was still on the call. Margaret went to the front door. A man in a delivery vest was already walking back toward a dark sedan. He had left a white gift box on the porch. There was no return address. No store label, no receipt. Margaret stopped in the doorway. "Erin." Something in her voice made me put the phone down without hanging up. I walked toward her. Neither of us touched the box. The sedan turned at the end of the street and disappeared before I could read the plate. The dispatcher heard enough to send the nearest patrol unit. The officer arrived 6 minutes later. He photographed the box on the porch. Photographed the position, photographed the lid, then he opened it wearing gloves. Inside was half of Lucy's teal friendship bracelet. The cord had been cut. The little brass paw bead she wore because of Bishop was still attached. Under it was a folded sheet of printer paper. "She's safe. Don't turn this into a search. You'll hear from us." At that moment, I thought the only question was where Troy Benson had taken her. I did not yet understand there was a second one, and it would take much longer to answer. Who had made sure he could take her without a struggle? My leg stopped holding me. I sat down hard on the bottom stair. That morning, I had fastened that bracelet around Lucy's wrist while she ate cereal and argued that her robotics team could beat the 6th graders if their wheel alignment held. I remembered the knot. I remembered her pulling her sleeve over it. I remembered telling her I loved her before she got out of my car. Now half of that bracelet was inside an evidence box. My lungs forgot how to work. Margaret crouched beside me. "Erin," I looked at her. "Stay with me." Her voice was steady. Not cold, steady. "The police are here. Mason is coming." We find her. My hands shook so badly I could not unlock my phone. Margaret took it only after I nodded. She opened my contacts and began reading names of Lucy's friends to the officer. That was the woman I remembered from the first hour. Useful, controlled, almost kind. It would have been easier if she had looked guilty. Mason arrived from a restoration job on the other side of Hampton 40 minutes later. His work boots were covered in drywall dust. There was dried compound on one sleeve. He pushed through the front door, looked at me, looked at the officer, then at the evidence box. Where was she last confirmed? The school. He pulled out his phone. Did they preserve the exit cameras? I asked them to. Did they copy the ID of whoever took her? Yes. Name, Troy Benson. Mason repeated it once, not dramatically. Like he was searching memory. Troy Benson. Then he called the principal. He asked whether every camera had been locked from deletion. Whether the office had made a copy of the man's license. Whether anyone saw Lucy resist. Whether the pickup authorization had come through his account. The principal told him it had. Mason lowered the phone. I didn't enter it. Nobody had accused him yet, but that was not suspicious. It was his account. Of course he would say it. When Detective Lena Ortiz arrived, Mason handed over his phone before she asked. I don't know this man, he said. If you can prove I contacted him, arrest me. Ortiz did not react. She was in her early 50s with tired eyes and the kind of voice that made people stop performing. She took Mason's phone but did not call him cooperative. She took Margaret's too, mine as well, then she separated us. I sat in the living room with one patrol officer while Ortiz spoke to Mason in the kitchen. Through the wall I heard only pieces. Where were you at 12:47? Who has access to your parent portal? Does Lucy know your password? Does your mother? Does Erin? Do you share devices? The same questions came to me later. I answered what I knew. Mason had used the same parent account since kindergarten. Lucy knew the tablet password at his mother's house. I did not know whether she knew his portal password. Margaret had worked for the school district years earlier. Attendance and records administration. She understood school systems better than most parents. That seemed useful at the time. Ortiz wrote it down without expression. Then she asked what I did in the Air Force, security forces. Specific job, physical security, meaning? I manage physical security programs, access control, facility protection, inspections. Investigations? No. I looked at her. She closed her notebook. Give me what you observe, let me decide what it means. I almost disliked her for saying it, then I realized she had just given me the only useful rule I had heard all afternoon. I found a yellow legal pad and drew 3 columns. Confirmed, possible, unknown. Under confirmed, I wrote Troy Benson. Parent account, one-time authorization. Under possible, I started to write Mason. Then I stopped and changed it to access to Mason's account. A person was not the same thing as a credential. I knew that better than most people. After that I said less, not because I trusted anyone. Because every new fact needed a place before it needed a meaning. The school had copied Troy Benson's driver's license. The address on it was real. The apartment was empty. His phone went dark 28 minutes after Lucy left school. Video showed Lucy walking beside him through the front office. She was not struggling. She was carrying her backpack. At one point, Troy held the door and Lucy went through first. The school secretary remembered Lucy asking whether her father was meeting them. Troy had answered something she could not hear. That detail hit me harder than the threat note. Lucy had gone willingly because she thought an adult she trusted had arranged it. Someone had used trust as the first restraint. A traffic camera caught a gray sedan matching Troy's car heading west. Another camera lost it near a construction corridor. After that, nothing. By sunset, police were checking interstate exits, bus stations, hospitals, parks, known addresses, modals, and every location tied to Troy Benson. Volunteers began gathering at the school, so did Caleb, Mason's younger brother. He drove a white commercial HVAC van with a shallow semicircle dent in the right rear cargo door. I barely noticed it. I noticed Bishop. He had been pacing since the gift box arrived. 9 years old, gray around the muzzle, retired from military working dog duty. Years earlier, before I moved into physical security management, I had worked as an MWD handler. Bishop had not been my first dog, he was the one who stayed. By the time he retired, Lucy was old enough to understand that a military working dog was not a pet until the military said he was. After that, she spent years making up for lost time. apple slices under the table, sweatshirts on his bed. A brass paw bead she bought at a craft fair and tied onto her bracelet because she said every team needed a mascot. When Caleb opened the rear doors of his van to unload portable searchlights, Bishop walked over. His nose lifted, then he climbed inside. "Hey," Caleb laughed once. He remembers Saturday. The previous weekend, my car battery had died and Caleb had taken Lucy and 3 robotics kids to a regional competition. Lucy had spent nearly 2 hours in that van. Her backpack had been on the floor. Her sweatshirt had been thrown across the second row. Bishop climbing into the van meant nothing. That was what I told myself. And at that moment, it was true. An hour later, Caleb left with a volunteer group searching trails near the river. I did not notice Bishop had gone with him, not until almost 9. By then I had 2 missing things in my life, my daughter. And the dog, who slept outside her bedroom. The neighbor's doorbell camera showed exactly what happened. Caleb opened the cargo doors. Bishop climbed in by himself. No one called him, no one hit him. Caleb turned to answer someone in the driveway and closed the door without sizing him. Ortiz watched the footage with me. "You think this means something?" "I don't know." That answer was honest. At that point, I did not know what meant anything. Caleb answered immediately when police called. He sounded horrified. He pulled over, opened the cargo bay. Bishop was gone. Caleb had made 3 stops since leaving my street. A church parking lot where volunteers divided into teams. A wooded service road near the river, and a commercial storage facility where his company kept portable equipment. He said he had stopped there for 2 battery floodlights and extra extension cords. The van's fleet tracker supported most of the route. The storage stop lasted 19 minutes, then Caleb continued toward the river. Ortiz asked for the facility address. He gave it without hesitation. Police checked the property before midnight. They found no Lucy. No Bishop. They searched the perimeter, the drainage ditch. The equipment yard behind the fence. Nothing. The first night lasted longer than any 24 hours I have lived through. At 1 in the morning, volunteers were still moving through parking lots with flashlights. At 1:40, a patrol officer brought me a list of addresses police had cleared. At 2:14, Mason brought me coffee I did not drink. He sat across from me at the dining table. For 3 minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he said if she was trying to stay here, she would have called me. I looked at him. I know. If she ran because of the move, she would have called one of us. I know. He rubbed both hands over his face. I shouldn't have filed before we talked again. It was the first time since the custody petition that he sounded uncertain. I wanted to hate him for bringing up the move. Instead, I understood why he did. We were both looking for a version of the world where Lucy had made a bad decision, instead of someone else making one for her. At 3, Margaret sat on my couch with Lucy's school photograph in her lap. She had stopped offering useful tasks because there were none left. At 3:40, she asked if I wanted her to call my commander. No, someone should know. They know enough. She nodded. No argument. At 4:30, Ortiz told me to sleep. I asked whether she had children. She said yes. Then don't ask me that again. She didn't. At 5:42 Tuesday morning, my phone rang. A storage facility manager had found a dog, Bishop. I drove there with a patrol officer because Ortiz refused to let me go alone. The sky was still gray. The facility sat between a roofing supplier and a fenced contractor yard. When I entered, Bishop was at the far end of a row of climate-controlled units. A maintenance worker stood behind him. Bishop saw me. He did not come. That frightened me more than if he had been bleeding. His muzzle was pressed against the bottom seam of one metal door. His body was completely still. I knew the posture. Passive alert. Years earlier, Bishop had been trained to indicate target odor behind barriers without barking, scratching, or biting at the source. Ortiz arrived 3 minutes after me. She crouched beside me but did not move closer to Bishop. Your dog? Yes. Your daughter? I don't know. She looked at me. I corrected myself. He's indicating something at that door. How sure that he's indicating? Very. That it's Lucy? I can't tell you that. Good. I hated that word. But she was right. The unit belonged to Harbor Climate Solutions, a company that shared equipment with Caleb's employer. Caleb was listed as an authorized user. My stomach turned. Ortiz did not let me near the door. She got the rental record. The access log, the manager, the facility owner, officers secured both ends of the row. Nobody kicked the door in because my retired dog sat in front of it. That was not how real evidence worked. They built the reason first. The access log showed someone had opened that section Monday afternoon using a temporary contractor code associated with Harbor Climate Solutions. Later, Caleb's employee code entered the same property. The timeline was enough for the manager and police to proceed under emergency circumstances while the legal process was documented. When the door finally rolled upward, I heard someone shout from inside. For half a heartbeat, I thought it was Lucy. It was an officer calling that the rear corner was clear. The unit was empty. Mostly, there was a folding chair, a children's juice bottle, a granola bar wrapper, a fleece blanket, a plastic crate positioned about 5 feet in front of the chair, a cheap phone charger, and on the concrete beneath the crate, one short piece of teal thread. I knew the color before anyone bagged it. The forensic technician did not tell me it came from Lucy's bracelet. She said it was consistent in color, nothing more. That restraint made the truth worse. Lucy had probably been there. And we had missed her. For the first time since the bus failed to arrive, I knew my daughter had been close enough for police to stand outside a door. And someone had moved her before we got there. Bishop circled the unit twice. Then lay down. He looked exhausted. His route had not found Lucy. It had found where Lucy used to be. The storage cameras complicated everything. Troy's gray sedan entered the property late Monday afternoon. It left 27 minutes later. The camera did not show the interior. It did not show Lucy exiting. The angle toward the unit row was bad. Several hours after Troy's sedan left, Caleb's van arrived. Caleb entered using his employee access. 19 minutes later, he left. His explanation about the floodlights was true. The manager found the checkout record. 2 battery lights were missing from the equipment cage. They were later found in Caleb's van. That should have helped him. Instead, a side camera created another problem. Caleb walked toward the row where Bishop later alerted. He disappeared from view for about 4 minutes, then returned carrying an extension cord. Caleb said that was exactly what happened. He had gone looking for the cord because the 2 lights used different connectors. There was no camera inside the row. Ortiz did not call him a liar. She took his van, his phone, his boots, his work access card. She asked for his clothing from the night before. Caleb went from volunteer to possible suspect before breakfast. Mason heard while he was still at my house. He drove to the storage facility. Ortiz would not let him pass the outer tape. He saw Caleb near a patrol car and shouted across the lot. "If you know something, tell them now. I don't. You were at the place where she was. I went for lights." Then explain 4 minutes. I got a cord. 4 minutes. "I don't know, Mason. I didn't time myself." Margaret arrived behind him. She stepped between them before either got close enough to make things worse. "This is not helping Lucy. She was right, again. That became one of the hardest parts. The people I would eventually learn to distrust kept saying the correct things." By Tuesday afternoon, Troy Benson became the center of the investigation. He had worked as temporary cleanup labor for Mason's company the previous year after a tropical storm damaged several commercial buildings. Mason recognized him only after Ortiz showed him an old employment photograph. "He worked maybe 3 weeks. You supervise him directly? Any dispute over pay? Not that I remember." "Did he know your daughter?" "He shouldn't." "Did he know about the custody hearing?" Mason hesitated. "People on jobs talk. What does that mean?" "I mean, guys know when your life is a mess. Divorce. Court. Moving. You take a phone call and 20 people hear half of it." It was the first answer from Mason I did not like. Not because it proved anything, because it was vague. But vague was not guilt. Ortiz reminded me of that later. "People get strange when they're scared. So you believe him?" "I didn't say that. Do you think Caleb did this?" "I didn't say that either." She closed her notebook. "You're trying to solve faster than the evidence. My daughter is somewhere with a man none of us knows." "I know. No, you know it professionally." Her face changed slightly. Then she said, "You're right. That was all. It was enough." Police recovered security footage from a tire shop across the road from the storage facility. The camera was old. The image jumped every few seconds. But it showed Troy's gray sedan entering the facility. Later, a dark crossover stopped near the exit lane. The sedan appeared again. A person moved between the 2 vehicles. The image was too poor to identify the person, too poor to tell whether Lucy moved with them. But part of the crossover's rear plate was visible. Rental records matched it to a vehicle Troy had rented Monday morning. That was the first clean forward step since the storage unit. The rental company had installed a toll transponder. Investigators obtained the usage history. The crossover passed through a toll point north of Hampton shortly after midnight. Another camera found it near a neighborhood filled with vacant houses and partially renovated rental properties. 5 of those properties had some connection to subcontractors Troy had worked with. Police began clearing them. I was not allowed to help. That was harder than anything I had done in uniform. I understood why. I still hated it. Tuesday night I sat at my dining table staring at a map while other people searched for my child. Mason paced near the window. Margaret folded and unfolded a paper napkin. Caleb was no longer allowed to join search teams. He sat at the police station for another interview. The house felt like a command post, except I was not in command. At 11:20, an officer came to tell us they had cleared 3 of the 5 houses. Nothing. At 1:13 Wednesday morning, a neighbor near the 4th property remembered seeing a dark crossover parked behind an empty house. Police entered, no Lucy, but they found children's food wrappers. Another blanket, a prepaid data card package, recent footprints outside a back gate. Someone had moved again. I went into the bathroom and threw up. Then I washed my face and returned to the kitchen. Margaret handed me a towel without speaking. At 4:20, a rental company location ping placed the crossover near a 5th property. The vehicle had apparently been parked in a detached garage where GPS reception was intermittent. By dawn, a tactical team was staged 2 streets away. At 7:16, Ortiz called, "We have her." I could not speak. "Erin, listen to me. We have Lucy. She's alive." My chair hit the floor. Mason grabbed the table. Margaret covered her mouth. "Is she hurt?" Mason asked. Ortiz heard him through speaker. "She's conscious. Medical team is evaluating her." "Where are they taking her? I'll tell you when I can." "Can I see her?" "Not yet." Mason shut his eyes. He did not ask what Lucy had told police. He did not ask what investigators knew. He asked whether she was hurt. Exactly what a father should ask. That made the next few weeks harder. Lucy had been found in a vacant rental house where Troy sometimes performed maintenance work. No one was with her when police entered. The front door was locked from the outside. A back window had been screwed shut. There was food, water, a mattress, a lamp, a bathroom, almost. No obvious injuries. A locked room does not become kindness because it contains snacks. Troy was arrested 2 counties away that afternoon after using a debit card at a gas station. At the hospital, Lucy asked for Bishop before she asked for Mason. Then she asked for Mason. That mattered too. I went into her room after the doctor cleared me. She was wearing a hospital gown and holding a paper cup of apple juice with both hands. Her hair was tangled. Her face looked younger than it had on Monday morning. I wanted to ask 100 questions. Who touched you? Who told you to leave school? Did you see your father? Did you see Margaret? Did they scare you? Did they threaten you? Instead, I sat down. "Hi." Lucy looked at me for 2 seconds. Then climbed into my arms. I held her without asking anything. Eventually, she whispered, "I knew you'd come." That sentence broke something in me that the threat note had not. I wanted to promise I would always come. Instead, I said, "I'm here." The child advocacy interview happened without me in the room. Ortiz explained why. One interviewer, minimal contamination. No parent reactions changing the child's answers. I knew the reasoning. I still hated the door closing. Afterward, Ortiz gave me only the parts I needed. Troy had told Lucy there was a temporary family plan because adults were fighting about the move. He said both parents knew she was safe. He told her a counselor needed to ask questions before Thursday's custody hearing. Lucy never saw a counselor. Troy read questions sometimes from paper, sometimes from his phone. What did she hate about moving? Did she feel like her mother listened? Was she afraid saying no would not matter? Did she want to stay near her father? Had she ever wished she could stay in Virginia even if her mother moved? When Lucy answered in ways Troy apparently did not expect, he stopped the recording and tried again. But Lucy never saw Mason, never saw Margaret, never heard either of them on a phone. She said Troy told her more than once that her dad knew she was safe. But that was Troy's statement, not evidence Mason actually knew. When Ortiz told me that, something inside me loosened. Maybe it was Troy. Maybe a former employee had learned enough about the custody fight to exploit us. Maybe Caleb had made a terrible mistake connected to the storage facility. Maybe someone wanted money from Mason. Maybe someone wanted leverage. Maybe my family was exactly what it looked like that first night. Fractured, angry, but not criminal. For almost 2 days I wanted that version to be true. The tablet found at the vacant house nearly gave it to me. Most files were exactly what Lucy described, short recordings. Multiple takes, questions about relocation, questions about me. The device was cheap, registered under a prepaid data account. No obvious Mason account, no Margaret account, no Caleb account. Investigators recovered deleted clips. In one, Lucy said, "Mom said I can finish the school year before we move." The recording stopped. In another, Troy asked whether she wanted to live with her father. Lucy answered, "Sometimes, but I also want Mom." Stop. Another asked whether she was afraid of me. Lucy frowned. No, stop. The selected clips were different. They made a cleaner story. Lucy did not want to move. Her mother did not listen. Military orders controlled her life. She wanted to stay close to Mason. Nothing in those selected statements was completely fabricated. That was what made them useful. A dishonest story does not always need lies. Sometimes it only needs editing. Then investigators found the sync history. Several selected clips had uploaded Monday evening to a cloud folder. The folder belonged to an old project sharing account used by Coal Restoration. Troy had once been granted access when he worked for Mason. That looked terrible. Mason had an explanation. He still had credentials. The company had never deactivated several temporary subcontractor accounts after storm season. Sloppy, but possible. His contractor confirmed that old accounts remained active. Then came a second fact. The selected clips were opened from a laptop assigned to Mason's job site before Lucy was rescued. Mason did not deny it. I got a notification that files were added to an old folder. I opened them. "You saw Lucy?" "Yes." "And you didn't call police immediately?" "I didn't know when they were recorded." "Your daughter was missing. I know. You saw her on video." She looked calm. She was answering questions. "I thought someone had sent custody material." "Who? I didn't know. What did you do?" "I called my lawyer." Phone records confirmed it. His attorney answered. The call lasted 6 minutes. The lawyer then called a police liaison approximately 18 minutes later. Mason's attorney later said he had advised Mason not to reply to the account, not to alter the files, and to preserve the computer. That was sensible. It was also delayed enough to bother Ortiz. Not enough to prove a crime. For the first time, I understood how real investigations become frustrating. Facts do not arrange themselves into a story because you need them to. Each fact narrowed one possibility and opened another. The original custody hearing on Thursday lasted less than 20 minutes. The judge did not award Mason custody. She did not give me a dramatic victory. Lucy had been recovered less than 24 hours earlier. A criminal investigation remained active. The court left Lucy physically with me. Restricted unsupervised contact with extended family. Ordered both parents not to discuss the investigation with her. And postponed any permanent custody modification. Mason did not oppose that. He requested therapeutic, supervised contact. His attorney argued that Lucy had asked for him at the hospital. My attorney did not dispute it, neither did I. The judge allowed a short visit when Lucy's clinician approved. 2 days later, I watched through a one-way window. Mason entered slowly. Lucy sat on a rug with a box of markers. For 1 second, she stared at him, then she ran into his arms. Mason dropped to his knees. He held her. He cried. So did she. Nothing about it looked staged. I went into the restroom afterward and sat in a locked stall for 10 minutes. That was when I stopped wanting Mason to be guilty. Not because I trusted him, because Lucy loved him. Because if Troy had done this alone, then some part of her old life could survive. I wanted that for her more than I wanted to be right. The investigation continued anyway. Caleb was the first person whose story changed. Not because he confessed, because Ortiz found a text. 3 days before Lucy disappeared, Margaret had asked Caleb for the storage facility gate code. Need to put some donation boxes somewhere for a few days. Do you still have access? Caleb replied with the code. No question, no follow-up. Ortiz showed him the messages. Why didn't you tell us? Caleb stared at them. I forgot. Ortiz said nothing. He rubbed both hands down his face. Okay, I didn't forget. Then what? I remembered after you took my van. Why keep it from us? Because I knew how it looked. What did you think your mother needed the code for? Exactly what donation boxes? Yes. You didn't ask whose boxes? No. You didn't ask why she needed a commercial storage yard? No. Caleb looked embarrassed, because Mom asks for things like they're already decided. That was the first sentence anyone gave us that described Margaret more accurately than I could. She did not usually convince people. She made requests sound like details in a plan everyone had already approved. Margaret admitted asking for the gate code. She said Troy had offered to move furniture for a charity group she occasionally supported. She knew him through Mason's company. She gave him the code because he said he needed temporary storage. That was stupid, she told Ortiz. It was not kidnapping. No direct message told Troy to take Lucy. No payment memo explained a crime. No recording captured a plan, no confession. Then Troy's financial records came back. 10 days before Lucy disappeared, his dormant cleanup company received a payment from Coal Restoration. $8,400. Invoice description. Emergency mold remediation. Investigators checked the project number. No mold remediation existed. The job address belonged to a commercial property where Mason's company had completed unrelated work months earlier. Mason said he did not personally approve every vendor payment. That was true. His controller had authority under $10,000. The controller said the invoice arrived already coded to an active project. She processed it. Who coded it? The submission came through Mr. Cole's credentials. Again, a credential was not a hand. Again, 1 inch instead of 1 mile. Mason argued someone inside the company could have used his saved login. The controller admitted several office computers stored passwords. Bad practice, possible explanation. Ortiz looked more irritated by bad security than by Mason. Your company is making my life difficult, Mason answered. It's making mine worse. That sounded real too. Margaret's phone showed no direct contact with Troy. Mason's phone showed no recent contact. Caleb's showed 1 call from Troy 2 months earlier and nothing near the disappearance. The prepaid phone Troy used during the kidnapping had communicated with 1 other prepaid number. That second phone was never recovered. For another week, the case seemed to stop. Lucy started sleeping in my room, not because she was afraid of being taken again. At least that was not how she explained it. She said Bishop snored too loudly outside her door. I let her have the lie. Therapy began. School sent work home. Her robotics teacher visited once and left a small motor kit on the porch. Mason continued supervised sessions. Margaret was not allowed direct contact while investigators reviewed her connection to the storage code. She sent Lucy a card through the therapist, no apology. Just I love you, I'm here when you're ready. Lucy put it in a drawer. Did not tear it up, did not display it. That became the pattern of our life. Nothing clean. Then my family law attorney asked a question that sounded administrative. Have you notified Tidewater about the temporary custody order? I looked at her. Why? Because you're the family trust director. I had forgotten, not legally, emotionally. The trust had not crossed my mind since Lucy disappeared. Not once. That is the part I would remember later. I did not solve the motive by looking at an old keepsake. I did not suddenly remember $4.8 million. I forgot the money existed because my child was missing. I called Naomi Hart because my attorney told me to complete an administrative obligation. Naomi had been the senior fiduciary officer handling my father's trust since his estate closed. She verified my identity, asked whether Lucy was safe. I said yes. Then I explained the temporary custody order. Naomi listened. Does the order remove your major decision-making authority? No, then your current trust role is unchanged. That's what I thought. There was a pause. Erin, before we finish, I need to ask you something. Okay, has Mason or his counsel told you they contacted us before the incident? My pen stopped. No, his attorney contacted Tidewater 9 days before Lucy disappeared. I stood without realizing it. About what succession? The word did not make sense at first. Naomi continued carefully. They asked whether a temporary change in custody would begin the qualification period for a successor family trust director. What did you tell them? That a temporary order would not automatically change anything. The trust requires a qualifying loss of your major legal authority over Lucy for 30 consecutive days before another parent could become eligible to apply. Apply for what exactly? To succeed you in the family trust director role. That doesn't give him the money. No, he can't withdraw the trust. No, then what would change? A successor director could exercise certain powers regarding support directions described in the trust. Tidewater would remain trustee. We would continue reviewing purpose, documentation, conflicts, and compliance. I sat again. Did Mason ask these questions personally? His attorney did. Did they say why? They said they were planning for possible custody outcomes. Naomi paused. I want to be clear. Asking a trust administration question is not evidence of misconduct. I know, and I did, but for the first time, custody had a second possible purpose. Until that phone call, I thought the crime was about keeping Lucy in Virginia. Or manufacturing a case that I was an unstable military mother forcing her across the country. Or Troy exploiting our family for reasons we had not found. Now there was another question. What happened after 30 days? That was when I remembered November, 6 months earlier. A proposal for $185,000. Mason had wanted trust funds used toward a larger house, renovations, security improvements, and educational space for Lucy. At the time, the request had sounded almost responsible. Then I looked at the contractor. The LLC shared a mailing address with a property management company controlled by one of Mason's business partners. I asked for independent bids. Mason became angry, not violent. Not threatening, just offended. He said I was treating him like a criminal. I said I was treating trust money like trust money. The request died. I had not thought about it since. Now I handed every document to Ortiz. She read the proposal twice. Then looked at me. This tells me Mason wanted a distribution 6 months ago. Yes, it tells me you blocked it. Yes, it doesn't tell me he kidnapped Lucy. Good, I laughed once. I could not help it. You're the only person I've ever met who says good when the evidence doesn't prove what I want. That's why you need me. Financial subpoenas followed. Slowly, not overnight, records came in pieces. Bank first. Then lender. Then business accounts. Then vendor ownership. The first useful result was Mason's lender file. Coal restoration had expanded too quickly. New equipment, 2 commercial leases, 3 projects that stalled after clients disputed change orders. Receivables borrowed against before payment. Mason's company owed approximately $612,000 under a workout agreement. He had 67 days from the Monday Lucy disappeared to cure the default or risk collection against pledged assets. One guarantee exposed part of Margaret's home equity. She had signed it when Mason expanded. That explained fear. It explained why Margaret might be desperate to save his company. It did not explain kidnapping. Then investigators imaged Mason's business laptop under warrant. Most files were ordinary: estimates, contracts, schedules, payroll. Then they found a spreadsheet called Custody Scenario B. Not Phase 1, not kidnapping, not anything a stupid criminal would label like a television villain. Most of the spreadsheet looked like legal and financial planning. Attorney fees, travel, school expenses, housing, moving costs. Then 4 dates appeared in a separate section. Effective custody order. 30-day successor eligibility, earliest proposed support direction. Lender cure deadline, the spacing was precise, 30 days. Then 4, then the lender deadline. Ortiz placed the printed sheet in front of me. You recognize this? No. Any reason he would calculate trust succession against a lender deadline? None that helps him. Another document sat in the same folder. Draft housing continuity plan. Total $385,000. Security upgrades, therapeutic services, education. Transportation, lease costs, renovation, again reasonable categories. That was what made them dangerous. One proposed vendor was Harbor Residential Security. Its registered agent was also the attorney for a property company owned by Mason's business partner. Another proposed lease property was controlled through an LLC that owed coal restoration money. A third vendor had purchased equipment from Mason's company the previous year and still carried an outstanding payable. If trust money entered that network, it could improve Mason's cash position indirectly. Not by writing Mason a check, by paying obligations around him. Naomi reviewed the documents with Tidewater's counsel. She refused to call the plan fraudulent. It was never submitted. Would you have approved it? I can't answer hypothetically. Could Mason have forced Tidewater to approve? No. So the plan might not have worked. Correct, that mattered. People do not need perfect plans to do terrible things. They need to believe the plan can work long enough to justify the next step. Then the school district completed a deeper back-end audit of Lucy's pickup authorization. The one-time code came from Mason's parent account. We knew that the device was new information, not Mason's phone. An older tablet registered to the account more than a year earlier. Lucy used it when she stayed at Margaret's house. The session had remained trusted. No new login challenge, no password reset, no obvious outside intrusion. And when the pickup authorization was generated, the tablet was connected to Margaret's home broadband. 12:47 Monday afternoon, more than 2 hours before Margaret arrived at my house carrying Lucy's sweatshirt, library books, and robotics charger. I read the timestamp 3 times. Ortiz did not say Margaret created the authorization. She did not need to. The tablet was in Margaret's house. The authorization came through it. Margaret had previously worked in school district attendance and records administration. She understood same-day dismissal procedures. She knew how the system treated trusted devices. She knew what front office staff looked for when an alternate adult arrived. But knowledge was not action, so investigators kept going. 3 days before Lucy disappeared, Margaret asked Caleb for the storage gate code. 1 day before Lucy disappeared, Troy's gray sedan appeared at Margaret's house. A neighbor's side camera caught it in the driveway for 11 minutes. Margaret said Troy had come to estimate gutter repairs. Police asked for the estimate. There was none. Work order? None. Text arranging the appointment? None. Margaret said it had been discussed verbally weeks earlier. Possible, again, possible. Then investigators recovered a deleted draft email from Mason's business account. It had never been sent. Subject, transition. The body contained 4 bullet points. Keep Lucy comfortable. No physical restraint. Record voluntary statements about relocation. No contact after transfer. There was no name, no location. No sentence ordering anyone to take a child. Mason said it referred to a tenant relocation at one of his properties. Investigators pulled the property file. No tenant relocation existed during that period. Mason changed the explanation. Maybe it was an abandoned planning note. He created hundreds of drafts, possible, but the draft timestamp mattered. It had been created the same morning Troy's fake mold remediation invoice entered Coal Restoration's payment system. The invoice was processed that afternoon, 10 days before Lucy disappeared. Now each explanation solved one document and created trouble with another. Margaret's explanations did the same. The storage code was for charity boxes. Troy visited for gutter work. Someone else could have used the school tablet. The school procedure printout found in her office was leftover material from her old job. The photocopied trust succession pages found in the same drawer were there because Mason had asked her to help understand the custody consequences. Any one explanation could have been true. All of them together required too much coincidence. Even then, Ortiz did not tell me the case was solved. Troy is the only person we can physically place in the pickup. What about the tablet? Places the authorization at Margaret's house. And the money? Places money from Mason's company into Troy's company. The draft suggestive, the spreadsheet suggestive. So what do you need? She looked at me, enough that the story doesn't depend on one interpretation. That sentence stayed with me. That night, after Lucy fell asleep, I went back to the dining room table alone. Bishop settled outside her door. The house was quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator cycle on and off. I opened the records I was allowed to have, the Tidewater correspondence. My father's trust file, the November housing proposal. The custody pleadings, the lender dates that had entered the family case. My notes from every fact Ortiz had told me I could repeat. I did not write motive. I did not write conspiracy. I did not write Mason or Margaret at the top of the page. I wrote source, date, action, consequence. By 1 a.m, the old ache along my right hip from years of body armor had started to pulse. I stood, walked it off, and sat back down. Then I saw what had been bothering me. The trust inquiry was not just close to the custody hearing. The 30-day qualification period was sitting inside the same calendar as Mason's lender deadline. Not proof, a sequence. I built the first version into 5 pages. No adjectives, no accusations, just records and dates. I did not call Mason. I did not call Margaret. I did not ask either of them for an explanation they could prepare before court. I sent the chronology to my attorney and gave Ortiz the same sequence the next morning. For the first time since Lucy disappeared, I was not waiting for someone else to tell me what a fact might mean. I was still not deciding guilt. I was deciding what belonged next to what. 3 weeks after Lucy came home, the full evidentiary custody hearing began. The criminal investigation remained open. No one walked into court in handcuffs. No prosecutor announced a solved conspiracy. This was still family court. The question was narrower. Who could safely exercise custody and decision-making authority while the larger investigation continued? I wore civilian clothes, no uniform, no rank insignia. I did not want the court looking at Master Sergeant Erin Cole. I wanted the court looking at Lucy's mother. Margaret wore navy. She carried a leather folder, a red felt-tip pen rested on top of her legal pad. Mason sat beside his attorney. He looked thinner. For the first time since I had known him, his suit jacket hung slightly loose at the shoulders. The school district's security specialist testified first. He explained the one-time pickup authorization, valid parent account. No password reset, no external login event. Source network at Margaret's residence. Mason's attorney asked the obvious question. Can you identify whose finger entered the authorization? No. Can you exclude a child using the tablet? No. Can you exclude a visitor? No, that was honest. For several minutes, the evidence sounded weaker than it had in Ortiz's office. Then the specialist explained the authorization screen. It required entering the alternate adult's full legal name. Troy Benson, the same name appearing on the identification used at school. Someone at Margaret's house had not merely clicked a generic pickup option. Someone had entered Troy's identity. The judge wrote something down. Ortiz testified next. Troy's the gray sedan. The storage facility, the first holding location, the rental crossover. The second property, the recordings, the cloud sync. The false mold remediation payment. Mason's attorney attacked the gaps. No direct message from Mason ordering Troy to take Lucy. Correct. No recording of Margaret instructing Troy. Correct. No proof Caleb understood why Margaret asked for the storage code. Correct. No proof the second prepaid phone belonged to Mason or Margaret. Correct. For several minutes, the case sounded as if it might dissolve into bad associations and unfortunate coincidences. Then Naomi Hart testified. She appeared by secure video from Tidewater. She explained the trust without drama. Lucy was beneficiary. Tidewater was trustee. I served as family trust director for certain support matters. A custody order did not hand Mason $4.8 million. It did not make him owner. It did not guarantee a distribution. But if I lost qualifying major legal authority for 30 consecutive days, Mason could become eligible to apply to succeed me in that role. His attorney had contacted Tidewater 9 days before Lucy disappeared and asked about that exact qualification period. Mason's attorney objected, asking how a trust works is not misconduct. Naomi answered before the judge had to. I agree. The judge allowed the testimony. Then the financial examiner displayed custody scenario B. Effective custody order, 30-day successor eligibility. Earliest proposed support direction, lender cure deadline. Mason's attorney objected again. Numbers are not intent. The judge agreed they are not, so the examiner moved to the housing package. $385,000. Then the vendor relationships. Then the outstanding obligations between those vendors and Mason's business network. Then the fake Troy invoice. Then the timestamps. Troy's company received $8,400 10 days before the disappearance. Mason's attorney asked whether the examiner could prove Mason personally approved the payment. No. Margaret's attorney asked whether the examiner could prove Margaret knew about it. No, again true. Then my attorney called me to the stand. She carried the 5-page chronology I had built at my dining room table and later cross-checked against the records admitted in court. She set it on the witness rail. The metal clip struck the wood with a small, flat click. For a moment, that was the loudest sound in the room. Then the HVAC came on above us. Margaret's red pen rolled half an inch across her legal pad. She stopped it with one finger. My attorney rested her hand on the chronology. What is this, a sequence? Who built the first version? I did. Did you add a conclusion? No. Why not? I looked at the first page. Because the dates can speak. She turned the page toward me. Start with Tidewater. 9 days. The succession inquiry had been made 9 days before Lucy disappeared. She moved down one line. Storage access, 3 days. Margaret asked Caleb for the gate code 3 days before Lucy disappeared. Another line. Troy Benson at Margaret's house, 1 day. Then the authorization, 12:47. The pickup authorization was generated from the trusted tablet at Margaret's home at 12:47 Monday afternoon. Troy signed Lucy out later that day. Selected recording synced to Mason's business cloud Monday evening. His job site laptop opened them before Lucy was rescued. My attorney turned to the last page. Qualification period. 30 days. Lender deadline, 67. Nobody moved. No single line proved the whole plan. That was the point. The lines did not need one interpretation forced onto them. They only needed to be seen together. Mason stared at the table. Margaret still held the red pen. She did not write. The judge asked Zeeson one question. Before Monday, did you know your attorney had contacted Tidewater regarding successor eligibility? Mason leaned toward his lawyer. They spoke quietly. Then he answered, yes. Did you know the qualification period was 30 days? Yes. Did you know your lender deadline when you prepared the custody scenario spreadsheet? Another pause. Yes. Did you know Troy Benson had received a payment from your company? I knew his company had been paid. I did not know it was connected to Lucy. The judge did not argue. She turned to Margaret. Was the registered school tablet physically in your home Monday? Yes. Did you know the parent portal remained active on it? I knew Lucy used the tablet. Did you know an alternate pickup authorization could be entered from it? Margaret looked at her lawyer. Her lawyer touched her arm. Do not answer beyond the question, he said quietly. Margaret looked back at the judge. I knew how the system worked. That was all. No confession, no dramatic collapse. No shouted explanation. Real people do not always explain the entire plot when evidence catches them. Sometimes they simply run out of answers that remain safe. The judge denied Mason's request for expanded custody. The protective arrangement remained. I retained major legal decision-making authority. Mason's contact remained supervised and therapeutic pending further criminal investigation and Lucy's clinician. Margaret lost all school pickup authorization and unsupervised access. Caleb's contact remained subject to the treatment team's judgment because investigators had found no proof he understood what Margaret intended when she requested the gate code. The judge made a point of saying the family court was not deciding criminal guilt. That belonged elsewhere. Tidewater separately froze any attempt to change family trust director, while the custody and criminal matters remained unresolved. No one applauded. Margaret did not collapse. Mason did not scream. The judge did not tell me I was brave. She signed an order. That was all. Outside the courtroom, Margaret walked past me. For almost a month, I had imagined what I would say if the evidence ever reached her. I imagined asking how she could sit beside me that first night. How she could hold Lucy's school picture. How she could tell me we would find her. How she could watch me fail to breathe while knowing more than she said. But I did not know exactly what she knew in every minute. And I had learned not to fill gaps just because anger wanted them filled. Margaret stopped near the elevator. For a second, I thought she might speak. She didn't, neither did I. The criminal case continued. 6 weeks after the hearing, prosecutors filed kidnapping and conspiracy charges against Troy. He later entered a cooperation agreement. Mason and Margaret were indicted after prosecutors finished presenting the digital and financial record to a grand jury. Their cases moved slower. I stopped measuring safety by the speed of a docket. The order that mattered first was already in place. Lucy could not be picked up through Margaret. Mason could not turn supervised contact into unsupervised access. And no change in custody could quietly become a change in control over the trust. I was not present for Troy's cooperation interviews. Ortiz told me only that cooperation did not mean every statement would be treated as truth. That sounded like her. Caleb cooperated too. He admitted giving Margaret access information and failing to disclose it immediately because he feared becoming a suspect. No one called that noble. No one called it kidnapping either. My job had changed. For the first week, I thought my job was finding Lucy. Then I thought it was proving what happened. By June, my job was smaller. Keep Lucy's world from becoming the case. The Air Force delayed my reporting date under family hardship procedures. Nothing dramatic. Phone calls, command review. A revised reporting date. My superintendent covered 2 inspections for me. My commander asked once whether I needed more time. I said yes. He gave it. That was the whole military miracle. Paperwork and people doing their jobs. Lucy returned to school half days. Then full days. Her therapist worked with the teachers. The robotics club stopped asking what happened because their teacher told them Lucy would talk when she wanted to. Most children accepted that better than adults did. Mason continued supervised visits. Some went well. Some did not. Lucy sometimes came home angry, sometimes quiet. Once she came home with a drawing they had made together. 3 stick figures, 1 dog, a house with 2 doors. She held it in the kitchen for a minute. Am I allowed to keep this? Course, even if Dad did bad things, yes. She studied my face. You're not mad at the picture, at me. That hurt more. No. Lucy folded the paper carefully and put it in her backpack. A few weeks later, the question returned in a different form. We were sitting at the dining room table. The cedar pencil box my father had made was open between us. He had been a cabinet maker before arthritis ended his work. He made the box the summer before he died. Lucy used it for mechanical pencils, robotic screws, and tiny tools she was always misplacing. She sorted pencil leads into little compartments. If I miss Dad, does that mean I don't believe you? I put down my coffee. No, what if I miss Grandma? No, what if I want to see them? Then you tell the truth about that. What if I don't? You tell the truth about that too. She moved one container, then another. Then who decides what happens to them? You. Her face changed, only slightly, but I saw the relief. I continued, you are allowed to love somebody and still need adults to keep you safe from them. Lucy looked down, so I don't have to forgive Dad. No, and I don't have to hate him. No, what about Grandma? Same answer, that was the boundary I wanted her to have. Not the boundary between my house and Mason's, the one between her feelings and adult consequences. Lucy was not responsible for sentencing anyone. She was not responsible for saving anyone. She was 10, that was enough. The friendship bracelet stayed with evidence for weeks. When police finally returned both halves, Lucy sat on her bedroom floor with Bishop beside her. The brass paw bead remained on one side, the tiny brass star remained on the other. She turned both pieces over in her hands. I expected her to throw them away. She did not. She found a new piece of cord in her craft drawer. Tied one half, then the other. The knot was ugly, too large. Slightly off-center. You fixed it, I said. Lucy shook her head. I connected it. I smiled. There was a difference. Some things can continue without pretending they were never cut. Bishop recovered faster than the rest of us. He went back to sleeping beside the kitchen door. He still inspected grocery bags, still became suspicious of HVAC vans. Still woke the second Lucy opened the refrigerator. No medal arrived, no officer came to honor him, and the truth was, Bishop had not solved anything. He climbed into Caleb's van because it smelled familiar. He ended up at the storage facility because Caleb stopped there for searchlights. Then once Bishop was there, he recognized something fresh. Lucy, one accident led him to one real clue. Everything after that required cameras. Records, warrants, interviews, forensics. People willing to admit when evidence did not prove as much as they wanted. I liked that version better. Bishop did not need to be a miracle. He only needed to be a dog who loved my daughter. Tidewater completed its own review. No trust money had been transferred through Mason's proposed plan. No $385,000 package had been approved. Additional conflict checks were added. Future support directions involving related vendors would receive enhanced review. The $4.8 million remained in trust. Not mine, not Mason's, Lucy's. For months, everyone around that money had tried to make it mean something else. Security, failure, control, a house, a business, a future. One evening, Lucy emptied the cedar pencil box onto the table. 2 mechanical pencils, a robotics worksheet, 4 screws. A tiny Phillips screwdriver. She packed them again and clicked the lid shut. That was when I finally understood what my father had tried to leave her. Not money, options. The money was only supposed to make some of those options easier. Mason had nearly turned it into leverage before Lucy was old enough to understand leverage. Margaret had nearly turned protecting her family into controlling everyone inside it. And I had spent too long believing the best way to protect Lucy was to prove I could tolerate all of them. I was wrong. If you have ever been told a boundary is cruel because someone on the other side is hurt by it, I hope you learn this sooner than I did. Love can be real and still be unsafe. Forgiveness can remain possible while access stays limited. You do not have to turn someone into a monster before you stop giving them a key. And a child should never have to carry the weight of deciding whether an adult deserves another chance. Adults are supposed to carry that weight for them. Our revised reporting date came in early summer. On our last morning in the old house, Bishop slept beside the moving boxes. Lucy tightened the connected bracelet around her wrist. The new knot sat between the brass star and the paw. Then she placed the cedar pencil box into her backpack instead of the moving truck. That stays with me, good choice. She looked at the front door. Do you think Grandma is mad we're leaving? Probably. I did not say that. I think Grandma has feelings she has to handle herself. Lucy nodded, then she asked, do you think Dad is? Probably some days. Is that my fault? No. She looked at me for a second. Then opened the door. Months earlier, I had believed a boundary became cruel if someone on the other side called it cruel. I knew better now. Sometimes love means leaving a door open. Sometimes safety means closing it. The hard part is accepting that love does not always get the deciding vote. Lucy stepped outside first. Bishop followed her. I carried the last box through the doorway. Then I locked the house behind us.